This video didn't just land in your feed, it arrived right on time. Not because of the algorithm, not because of luck, but because God is speaking to something inside of you. He's not asking you to do more. He's asking you to become more by aligning your inner life with the mind of Christ. So before we begin, ask yourself, Lord, is there something in me that needs to shift so I can walk lighter, live freer, love deeper? Comment below, which of these 8 attitude shifts are you wrestling with most right now? You're not alone. Now take a breath. Let's go deep, because this is about transformation, not just information. 1. From entitlement to gratitude. Entitlement whispers, I deserve this. Gratitude says, I didn't earn this, but thank you, Lord. When Jesus fed the 5,000, he didn't complain about how little they had. He didn't say, Father, it's not enough. He looked at the 5 loaves and 2 fish and gave thanks. That small moment, it multiplied the miracle. Entitlement locks you in frustration because it places you at the center. Gratitude unlocks peace because it places God at the center. We live in a culture that convinces us we're owed comfort, ease, recognition. But Jesus flips that on its head. He invites us to thank God even when nothing makes sense. That's when heaven moves. Ask yourself, am I angry at God for what he hasn't done, or am I grateful? He's still working in the unseen. Gratitude isn't just good manners. It's spiritual warfare. 2. From control to surrender. We like the feeling of control over outcomes, timelines, and people. But here's the truth. Control is an illusion. Jesus modeled surrender from day one. He said, not my will, but yours be done. And he didn't say that when everything was going great. He said it in the Garden of Gethsemane, sweating blood, knowing the cross was hours away. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. When you surrender, you're saying, oh God, I trust your character more than my comfort. I trust your way more than my wants. If you're exhausted trying to micromanage every detail of your life, maybe God is saying, put down the pen. I'm the author of your story. Surrender is scary, but it's sacred. 3. From judgment to compassion. One of Jesus' boldest statements was, judge not, lest you be judged. Matthew 7:1. Not because we can't discern right from wrong, but because judgment without compassion becomes condemnation. Jesus had every right to judge the woman caught in adultery. Instead, he silenced her accusers with one question. He who is without sin, cast the first stone. Compassion looks at the person, not just the behavior. It says, you may be messy, but you're still worthy of love. When we see someone broken, the world trains us to whisper criticism. But Jesus teaches us to offer covering. Shift your question from, what's wrong with them? What pain are they carrying that I can't see? 4. From complaining to worship. There's a reason the enemy tries to keep you complaining. It drains your power. Complaining focuses on the problem. Worship focuses on the one who's greater than the problem. Paul and Silas were beaten and chained in prison, and yet they didn't groan or beg. They sang. And at midnight the prison shook. Sometimes the breakthrough you're praying for is waiting on your praise. It's not about pretending things are fine. It's about declaring, even if they're not, I will bless the Lord at all times. Your praise is prophetic. It tells your soul what your eyes can't yet see. So here's your shift. Turn your complaints into a chorus. Turn your stress into a song. 5. From hurry to presence. Jesus walked slowly. He never ran to a miracle. He never rushed a moment. He noticed the woman who touched his garment. He paused for children. He stayed behind when others moved ahead. Hurry makes us miss the holy. God speaks in whispers, not shouts. But if your soul is always in a rush, you'll miss his voice every time. Presence means slowing down long enough to listen, to sit, to observe. If you're always sprinting through life, ask yourself, what am I running from? Or maybe, what am I afraid to feel if I stop? You're not behind schedule. You're just being invited to be present with God again. From hurry to presence. Hurry isn't just about pace, it's about posture. Many of us wear hurry like a badge. We hustle, we grind, we multitask. We think being busy means we're being productive, even spiritual. But here's the problem. Hurry is the enemy of intimacy. You can't hear from God clearly when your mind is constantly racing. You can't love people well when your heart is 5 steps ahead of the moment. And you can't rest in the presence of God when your spirit is addicted to movement. But Jesus, he never rushed, not once. Even when Jairus begged Jesus to come heal his dying daughter, and it was urgent. Jesus stopped on the way to talk to a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. To us, that would seem inefficient. To Jesus, that was the moment. We miss the sacred when we move too fast. We miss the still small voice when our world is always loud. Have you noticed? Some of the most divine encounters happen when we slow down. That one quiet drive where you break into tears and realize God was with you all along. That one walk where you feel peace drop into your chest like a whisper from heaven. That one moment in prayer where silence speaks louder than words. God isn't in the chaos. He's in the calm. And maybe, just maybe, He's asking you to slow down. Not because you're lazy, but because He wants to love you in a pace you can actually feel. So take a deep breath right now. Feel it? That's what presence feels like. It's holy, and it's yours. But only if you stop running long enough to receive it. 6. From comparison to calling. Let's be honest, comparison is exhausting. We scroll, we judge, we compare our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel and wonder why we feel so inadequate. But Jesus never once told us to measure ourselves by others. He only said, "Follow me." Peter learned this the hard way. After Jesus rose from the dead and reinstated Peter, who had just denied Him, Peter turned and pointed at John and asked, "Lord, what about him?" Jesus replied, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You follow me." John 21:22, in other words, mind your mission. Comparison is a trap because it makes us forget that our calling is custom-made. It distracts us with timelines, appearances, achievements, none of which define our worth. God didn't create you to copy someone else's life. He anointed you to live yours. Your voice? Needed. Your struggle? Part of the testimony. Your timing? Perfectly aligned with His plan. When we compare, we resent. When we walk in our calling, we rejoice. Look at Moses. His calling didn't look like Joseph's. Look at Ruth. Her destiny didn't unfold like Esther's. Look at you. Your story doesn't need to look like anyone else's. So if you're in a season where it feels like others are getting ahead, being celebrated, receiving their blessings, don't get bitter. Because when you're in calling, you're in covenant, and that means what's for you won't pass you by. Shift the focus from why not me to God, what are you building in me? Because He's not late. He's preparing a stage that fits the size of your assignment. And when it's time, not only will your fruit speak, your story will heal others. 7. From grumbling to gratitude. You ever notice how quickly we forget the good when something goes wrong? The Israelites did this a lot. God parted the Red Sea for them. And days later, they were complaining about food. He rained down manna from heaven, and they still grumbled about what they didn't have. Sound familiar? Let's be honest, it's easy to complain. It's easy to focus on what's missing instead of what's present. It's easy to point out what's not going right instead of seeing what God has already done. But here's what Jesus models. Gratitude in all things, even in the breaking. At the Last Supper, Jesus took bread, broke it, and gave thanks. He gave thanks. Knowing betrayal was minutes away, He gave thanks. Knowing the cross was coming, He gave thanks. In the breaking. Because gratitude isn't based on how you feel. It's based on what you know. God is still with you. Some of the most spiritually mature people aren't those who have the most. They're the ones who can praise God in the least. They can sit in a storm and still say, "God, I don't get it yet, but I trust you." That's power. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about proclaiming God is still good, even when it isn't. And here's the shift. 8. From fear to faith. This is perhaps the most important shift of all. Fear is sneaky. It dresses itself as logic, as caution, as just being realistic. But fear at its root says this: God might not come through. And Jesus always counters fear with faith. When the disciples were panicking in the boat during a storm, Jesus didn't calm the storm first. He challenged their faith first. Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? Fear makes us doubt what God said. Faith dares to believe even when nothing looks like the promise. Let's be real, you'll feel fear. But the shift Jesus calls you to is this. Don't follow it. You can feel afraid and still step forward. You can be uncertain and still obey. Because faith isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing God's voice over the voice of fear. Think of Abraham, called to leave everything familiar and go to a land he'd never seen. That's faith. Think of Mary, visited by an angel, told she'd carry the Messiah. Faith. Think of you, walking a road few understand, carrying a vision only God gave you. That's faith too. So here's the shift. Instead of, what if it doesn't work? Start asking, what if God shows up? Instead of, what if I fail? What if this is the moment that changes everything? Faith doesn't need the full picture. It just needs a yes. And when you give God your yes, He will move mountains. So let fear come, and let it watch you walk on water anyway. Because the life Jesus invites you into is not safe, but it's sacred. And it requires this one bold step. Faith over fear, always. You've just journeyed through 8 powerful shifts Jesus calls us to make. Not because he wants to burden us, but because he wants to free us from ego to humility, from resentment to forgiveness, from self-preservation to service, from judgment to grace, from worry to trust, from anxiety to peace, from grumbling to gratitude, and from fear to unshakable faith. These aren't easy changes. They require surrender. They require intention. But more than anything, they require your yes. Because the moment you say yes to these shifts, you're not just changing your attitude. You're allowing God to renew your heart, your mind, and your entire life. And if something stirred in you today, if one of these spoke directly to your soul, I want you to pause and ask, God, which of these are you inviting me to shift right now? He'll show you, because you're not doing this alone. You were never meant to. Now here's your call to action, right here, right now. In the comments, share which shift resonated most with you. Your comment might be the exact encouragement someone else needs to keep going. Let's build each other up. If this message spoke to you, don't just keep it to yourself. Send it to one person you care about. You never know. It might be the answer to their silent prayer. And if you're serious about walking deeper with God, hit that subscribe button.